Hi, I'm Chris Nedza, Lead Entrepreneur in Residence of the Advanced Technology Development Center at Georgia Tech. We're the state of Georgia's technology incubator. Welcome to Season 1 of the ATDC podcast, Executive Bytes. We focus on the startup founders in our portfolio, what sparked them to launch their companies, the market problem they've solved, and even how they overcame the thoughts of quitting when times get rough. Enjoy. All right, welcome everybody to this episode. We've got Angie Sandritter of RippleWorx, and my co-host is Anik Kahn, who is the CEO of Max Rewards. And just a public service announcement, Max Rewards is really cool. If you have a credit card, you need to know which card to use to get the points and all that. Max Rewards manages all of that for you. So I love that tool, and man, it's a good subscriber.
Yeah, awesome.
But we're here to talk to Angie, who's the CEO of RippleWorx. And Angie, you're like a dynamo. Fun fact about Angie, she is a marathoner. Did you just run what was the last big marathon you ran?
Yeah, Chris. So London was the last one, but I guess I shouldn't knock on wood, but Tokyo is next in the beginning of March. So I'm heavy into my training program right now.
How many hours a day do you train?
Hours a day, probably not even 1 hour a day I'm training, but on the weekends I could run a significant amount of miles to build up my base for the marathon. Yeah.
And so this sports is a little bit in your history, right? Which kind of led to the founding of RippleWorx. Is that right?
Yeah.
So give me how about that for a smooth segue, right? So give me tell our audience about RippleWorx. What are you guys doing? Because I know it has to do with performance and getting the best out of your team and helping develop your team for companies, large organizations. But tell our audience about RippleWorx and what it do, because it's super interesting.
Yeah. I mean, performance accelerator, right? And it's not a drug, so it's a software package. And honestly, what it's designed to do is understand when are people motivated to want to do what they're doing. When do they have the skill sets to do what they're doing, and when does the organization need it? And when you align these three factors, then you're able to see performance accelerate.
So
software.
It's software, it's a platform, and it's about workforce. What makes it different than anything else that's out there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, truthfully, it's the motivation component, because you see a lot of siloed applications. I've got employee experience, I've got employee development, I've got KPIs, OKRs, but really, what is the through line to align those three things together to ultimately see performance improved?
So was there some kind of event that circle it back around, because I know this backstory, but I want to give our audience the opportunity to know the backstory of you, and of course you're one of your co-founders is
Dynamo. When you talk about Dynamo, right? Like true high performer is Dr. Timo Sandritter, so co-founder. KMO is his dissertation, so he's a doctor. But this was one of the things that he really studied and believed. He's an operator at heart. Like, he's built companies, helped to see companies move forward. So it's based on that theory that he had and was able to put into practice and studied at USC, University of Southern California, that is, to get done.
Well, I'm glad you're here, because I know Timo, and Timo would be like, he's large and in charge, and he's super nice, but man, that guy is like a stick of dynamite, and it's awesome to be around him. Very motivating. But how did RippleWorx, how did you guys come up with the idea of RippleWorx?
Yeah, it was twofold. So that being what we know happens, but people don't want to get to goals overnight. So you've got to infuse some level of habit forming behavior to achieve your goals, hence the ripple effect. I'm a software girl. Like, I've always grown up in tech, love tech. So I was thinking, can we use tech to help facilitate this and move it forward? We started working with people that are high performers and known for being high performers, want to see data so that they're continuing to develop, so that they see W's on the board, meaning athletes. And so that's where we first infused this particular concept.
working with athletes.
Working with high-performing teams, so not just any team, but the Bundesliga soccer teams, to be able to build up these types of models and see when are they more prone to a non-contact injury and have burnout. Is it going to be actual physical time and exertion, or is it mental time and exertion? And oftentimes, it's mental time and exertion. So we were able to determine that early.
So when you first started the company, did you have this vision that this is going to be way bigger than sports or soccer? Or was it like, this is what we kind of solved, and then maybe something else will come out of this?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, no, total sports. Like I remember the slides, like we're going to be the dominant soccer solution for the world. We did not see 2020 on the horizon when nobody was playing sports. So that was pre-2019-ish, 2018-ish, that we were going to be the sports solution for performance.
So you go, we're doing this for professional sports, because it was professional sports, right? A professional soccer team.
Yeah.
You know, you're so humble. Like, I want to scream to the world, look, professional sports use this to motivate professional athletes who you would think they get big paychecks, so they should be motivated, right?
Right.
Because every kid works their tail off for one day to become but they have burnout mentally.
Yeah.
And I guess the same thing happens in corporations and companies. And so what happens if they're not motivated, they move on, right?
That's correct. And so that's our problem statement. Insert the great resignation, the great reshuffle, where are people going? And this problem statement still exists. If you look at the frontline worker space, high burnout, high stress jobs, oftentimes those businesses are dependent on people to get things done and accomplished. People are unfortunately the product, if you will, to get things forward. And so they are essential to that business's viability. And so that is really where we're focused today, is helping that.
How did you move from professional athletes that are likely getting paid quite a bit to frontline workers, where it's probably kind of the opposite? And was there a pretty long kind of journey in kind of figuring out this new customer profile?
Yeah, great question. We actually started working with law enforcement directly in 2020.
Okay.
So the hybrid of a tactical athlete versus a professional athlete. Mm-hmm. But that was a statement where we saw a lot of burnout, a lot of individuals wanting to leave police forces in that wake. And so how do you begin to infuse the right habits within these organizations so that people are less likely to hit burnout, less likely to hit those points in their trajectory?
So you guys have a platform that has a dashboard, if you will, mm-hmm. but it's not your typical KPI dashboard. It actually, I think it measures the pulse of the organization, right?
Yeah.
So, which, I mean, you don't see that too often. Everybody has KPIs and OKRs, you're right, but who measures whether their team is fired up or not? And that's what you guys do. Mm-hmm. How does a leader use that? And walk me through that experience.
So insert the events of 2023, right? We have been building up models and databases of information, and then all of a sudden generative AI just takes off.
Right.
And so the ability to pull in a secure way generative AI into the models that we've been building and use that for true actionable insights that can be given to leaders when they need to get that information to get ahead of it. So it's not just, hey, here's the results of your survey, your pulse results, have a nice day, some nice charts. It's really like, these are the 3 things that are plaguing your organization. You've implemented that policy, they don't understand it, they're starting to get discouraged about it. It's very actionable and authentic to their organization.
But anybody can use generative AI and prompt engineering, but I think one of your secret sauce is going back to Timo, and you've got some data scientists. Thank you. Right?
Yes.
I mean, is that the secret sauce, you think, or because
you
got to know what question to ask the generative AI tool, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So generative AI is out there, and anybody can query it and try to get some results, right? But to make it consistent and actionized to the goals that you want to achieve, we've really built it on our own performance framework. And understanding that domain-specific type of clientele. So today we largely work with law enforcement, we work with military, so Air Force pilots, and understanding what are these high stressors for these individuals, and then also moving into more of the restless worker space as well into the commercial space.
So what holds back? I mean, when I think about this, I'm like, man, Home Depot should be using this to know whether their people that are working up and down the aisles assisting customers are actually motivated. What keeps those guys from not just beating the door down? I mean, I know you guys are growing like crazy, so you're being successful. I'm hoping a Home Depot person or anybody out there will pick this up, but service and worker motivation is important. What holds them back from jumping all over you guys, or does it?
And a lot of this is dependent on the organization. Do they have a pain point that is plaguing them to make this decision, right? And so that's where we've got to infuse some level of strategic marketing and sales. We're a startup. We've been focused on trying to build out the product and work to service the customers we have. But recently we took in an infusion of strategic capital to build out the marketing machine to help us get the word out and help it really hone the product set to address the customers in the right way.
But you've got a massive amount of data that you've, I mean, how many surveys have you guys compiled and done?
Yeah, hundreds and hundreds of thousands. I mean, we're going on 7 years now of the company. And so that amount of data that we've been able to collect and build up our own models and infrastructure gives us a really powerful set of information at that point.
I was going to say, how do you get people, I mean, if someone's motivated, then they'll go and say, yeah, I'm excited. But if someone isn't motivated, how do you get them to actually give truthful responses? Because there's often, there's may be a perception, real or not, that like, okay, if I say I'm not motivated, that's going to hurt my performance reviews. So how do you actually encourage, getting that real data?
So we use anonymity for this. So that's first and foremost, right? This is an anonymous piece of information that we're taking and collecting it. And then we also have asked a very simple question that's been intuitive to the results, and that's, is there anything else you would like to tell us? And so by peppering that into these pulses that people are looking at, that gives you a large, rich set of very authentic data to say, okay, sentiment is dropping, here's what's going on. You can tell from the tone of words that are being used and what people are most frustrated about in the organization.
I think that ties into the background of the data scientists and Timo's background and expertise. Can you flesh that out a little bit? Like, how do they know? Because that's how your prompt engineering is driven and the algorithms are built, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have several data scientists in the organization, some of which are from Georgia Tech. So thank you very much.
Go Georgia Tech.
Yeah. And so absolutely some really impressive individuals, and they have built out the ability to understand prompt engineering. They have a sort of a agent-based model, and we have domain expertise with the data set that we have. So those are kind of three separate things that most people dealing with generative AI really don't have, and that's what gets you or allows you to have specific actionable insights to really make and decisions on and trust the data with.
So I know you said startup, but you guys are way past what most people would think of startup. I mean, you guys are growing like crazy. You've got great customers, and it's been a journey. How has your leadership evolved through this journey?
Yeah.
And Timo's he has a very similar last name. So,
yeah.
Does he know you're the boss?
He does not want to be CEO. Like, the problems I want to solve, he doesn't want to solve those kind of problems. So I think as far as like trying to step on each other's in each other's path or step on each other's toes. Thank you. I've
noticed that you guys are very. I've never sensed any kind of tension about that. It's like you guys have swim lanes that you love and you're really good at. So.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. He is. He's an avid learner. He's going to be always trying to see what's new. What do we need to continue to infuse into the company so it's innovative? He wants to be out there on the forefront of understanding the pulse of what customers and buyers need and what's the latest of the latest. So this is a fantastic thing, and I want to set up the business. Like, I want it to run like a well-oiled machine, and that we're able to move forward and achieve the goals that we've set in front of us. So it is a good yin and yang from that perspective.
So as your leadership has evolved, coming back to that, because I think you have you operate through the EOS system. Like, give us a little bit of background on like how has your leadership evolved from day one.
Yeah. Day one, a bunch of us, we didn't even have titles. Like, I looked back at some early emails. I was like, I'm in charge of vision, whatever that is, right? Like, you're a startup just making up things at that point. But yeah, we've evolved to set up a more robust business. And this last quarter was probably our most serious evolution, as we did take in some strategic capital and brought in some real operators to help us get our numbers in place and help to get a repeatable sales process. Their main mission is to simplify and to scale. And so now we're focused on trying to pave the way for these individuals to come in and do that in the organization.
So you have some core segments right now. So is the goal for 2025 to really just be able to scale those segments really well, or do you also plan on adding additional customer segments that you haven't really worked with before?
Yeah, I'm always reading. So beginning of the year, I'm reading again. And so, do you go after total addressable market? Do you go after total addressable problem? And it's more total addressable problem that we're looking at this year. So where is total addressable problem? We started off in markets, right? And so now saying, where does this problem statement scale into other verticals, such as construction is a big vertical to think about, your talent that's needed for cities that are trying to grow, manufacturing, right? And so where do you start to see this as being a total addressable problem into other statements?
And so when you're onboarding a customer, roughly how long does it take before they contact you and get a contract, and the system is out in the workforce and their frontline workers are able to use it?
Yeah, so the time from contract signature to actual deployment, it can be a matter of weeks depending on the IT infrastructure, right? So we want to plug into systems of records so that moves, adds, and changes in the organization are quick and simple. As soon as we can get through some of those IT logistics, the software is able to run at that point. So that part can be easier. Contract signature, its procurement processes are different. If you're dealing with the federal government, that's one procurement process. Dealing with state and local governments is another. Commercial will be yet another type of procurement process.
I would think that franchise organizations could really use this as well.
Yeah.
Have you guys looked at that at all?
Yeah, hospitality is a big market to think about. Where we might differ from a general frontline worker, general mass, is we're really looking for that skilled workforce. And so thinking through, where is the cost of retention really, really high for an organization? And so it's really looking at your skilled workforce at that point.
So when you say, where's the cost of retention really high, where is it low? I mean, seriously, how low? I mean, it costs a ton of money because we used to run some hair salons, and man, the cost of getting somebody up to speed, a hairstylist, getting them up to speed and understanding our culture and motivated, it was high. We didn't want to lose people. Yeah. So I don't know.
Chris, do you want to go in sales?
I love your product. That's one reason why I love this podcast that we do, because our companies are unbelievably amazing. I mean, you guys are smart. You're hardworking. You're motivating. Man, you're changing the world, and I love what you guys do. So, yeah, I am wearing your jersey.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Day in and day out. So, listen, I thank you for being our amazing guest, and Anik, thanks for co-hosting with me.
Thank
you. Stay tuned. I can't wait to see where you guys are going, and thank you for being part of ATDC's team and in our family. And we are definitely wearing Angie and RippleWorx jersey. So thank you.
Fantastic. I love Georgia Tech. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the ATDC podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like, and share or connect wherever you get your podcasts. Please be sure to follow us on social media. Our handle is @ATDC on X, LinkedIn, and Instagram.